Hi, this is the SOFTRAX audio blog for the week of December 17th, 2018. My name is Graham Hulme, and I'm the Vice President of Product Management at SOFTRAX. This week's audio blog will focus on two 10Q filings that were submitted for quarterly periods that ended at the end of October 2018. So let's get right into it. The first 10Q filing we'll focus on is for Salesforce.com Inc. for the quarterly period that ended October 31st, 2018. And so, in this filing, what caught our eye is that starting in the revenue recognition - adoption of topic 606 section at the bottom of page 11, and it goes on to page 12, the company provides a summary of ASC 606's impacts. And what's notable in this section is the company discusses how a recent acquisition caused additional complexity and judgments related to revenue recognition under ASC 606. And let me quote a section from that filing that really caught our eye. Quote, "Additionally, as part of its business strategy, the company periodically makes acquisitions of complementary businesses, services, and technology. These acquired businesses may have customer arrangements that include the delivery of an on-premise software element combined with a software as a service element. This was the case with the company's acquisitions of MuleSoft Inc. in May 2018. The company has to apply significant judgment to determine the appropriate revenue recognition policy for such products and services, since Topic 606 eliminated the provision that service revenue accounting was appropriate when the relative selling price of one or more deliverables in a multiple element solution arrangement could not be determined." End quote. And so when you unpack that quote, effectively, the company acquired a new business. That business either hadn't adopted 606 yet, or at a minimum, the company has to vet that adoption if the company has adopted 606. But fundamentally, Salesforce.com is a cloud-based, offers all of its products and services via the cloud, right? The company they acquired had on-premise deployments, and they have a different business model that needs different considerations for 606. And so effectively, they had to do a mini ASC 606 adoption for that business that they were acquiring. And so that topic in and of itself is something that hasn't come up frequently in filings in year one of ASC 606, but it's something that we'll have to keep an eye on as any acquisition activities happen going into 2019. And it strikes the point that even though a company may have completed its 606 adoption, if it's acquiring a new business and that business is either hasn't adopted 606 yet, or even if it has, there still is a level of diligence that has to be put forward, which could potentially equate to another mini 606 adoption for that new, the target business they're acquiring. So good point of reference there, again, on page, starting at the bottom of page 11, going into page 12. I think beyond the above, the company really offers textbook examples of 606 disclosures and information in the revenue recognition policy section on pages 12 and 13. And so also on pages 20 and 21, there are contract balances, unearned revenue, and remaining performance obligation sections that are quick reads. They're 1 to 2 sentences in each section, but we encourage you to read them because Salesforce.com is really, in our view, one of the more mature and advanced filers in terms of how it handles 606 disclosures. And so reviewing these and showing how Salesforce is handling 606, both in their filings and then on their website, they have investors' presentation. It's worth reading as your time allows because it really is instructive. The second company we'll touch on today is Daktronics Inc. And their 10Q was for the quarterly period that ended on October 27th, 2018. So in that filing, starting on the top of page 10, and it goes into page 12, is a section named Note 4 Revenue Recognition. In that section, the company provides an expansive narration of its ASC 606 judgments and the considerations it has for 606. And so it offers a level of detail into its business model and practices that likely would not have occurred prior to the advent of 606. And this, in my mind, goes to points that the SEC made, as did FASB in the past, about one of the key benefits of 606, which is more clarity for the consumers of financial statements on companies and their business practices. And so it harkened back to a quote that I saw earlier in the summer from Wesley Bricker, the chief accountant at the SEC's Office of the Chief Accountant, when he was at a roundtable at a New York college in the summer of 2018. And the quote was, "Some companies point out rightly that the impact in the primary financial statements was not all that significant, and therefore they say the cost of implementation doesn't match our perception of the benefit. That argument tends to minimize, I think, the greater benefit of the standard, which is the disclosure package and the quantitative as well as the qualitative disclosure elements that are now provided to investors about contracts with customers," end quote. And so, again, to that point, what's key is that the level of detail that the company shared about its business model, about its judgments, about the considerations that went into those judgments and the decision-making process it went through to come up with AIC 606 disclosures, that is all in this particular filing in the section that starts on the page 10 and then goes into page 12 for revenue recognition. And it's worth a read in that regard. And I would argue that it would be one that potentially the SEC and FASB would hold up to say, hey, this is the benefit we were talking about. I think, as a concluding point about this filing, what's also very interesting in it, and it's on page 13, is its disaggregation of revenue section. And so the company, if you can picture it visually, what it did in its filing, and it was unique, is that it, on the left side, it had total revenues broken out into two sections. And the left side had a section named Type of Performance Obligation, and that's broken out into 3 rows. And those 3 rows represent, obviously, different types of performance obligations the company provides. And then a separate section just underneath it named Timing of Revenue Recognition, and that's broken out into 2 rows. Across the top, there are 5 columns representing the company's 5 segments, which are commercial, live events, high school, park and recreation, transportation, and international. Those are the 5 columns, and those are the business segments. And so total revenues are, under those columns, are represented left to right first by type of performance obligation, under which there are 3 types of performance obligations. Total revenues are presented, broken out by those rows, and then obviously there are totals underneath that. But again, they're underneath those columns for business segments. Then directly beneath it, the total revenues are repeated, but they're broken out differently by timing of revenue recognition, and that's 2 rows. And so you have this interesting dynamic where the columns are consistent, yet they take the same total revenues, but they break them out in 2 different ways on the left side, left to right, in a row format, and it gives the user a pretty intuitive and quick way to see how the company's revenues line up and how they would break them out. And so they provide that for in a 3-month and a 6-month window. So to us, it's worth a review because it's intuitive and it's unique with respect to how the disaggregation of revenue information was presented. Thank you for your time today. We'll have a part 2 of the audio blog for the week of December 17th, so please keep an eye out for that. And that will focus on Cisco's 10Q and an interesting interplay on its earnings call between an analyst and the company for ASC 606. Again, thank you for your time. We'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.